I wish I would have been easier on myself. Today I follow one thing, and it's trust the process. When you're young and things don't go your way, we tend to think it's the end of the world. We tend to lead with our emotions. But remember that praying that I told you about, that I mentioned about? Something happened during that time that I began to let go of the control that I never had. And when things come up today, I may respond internally, right? The heart rate may go up, but my intuition is continuously telling me, relax, trust the process.
Welcome to Meatspad. It's a platform dedicated to share breakthrough knowledge that is accessible to the global meat industry. On each episode, you'll have the opportunity to listen and learn from meat specialists and professionals about the whole meat industry. This podcast is brought to you by Ultrasource, equipment and supplies for the meat and food industry. Viscofan collagen casings, the best alternative to animal gut casings for a better taste and sustainable sausage making.
Okay. Well, good morning from Columbus, Ohio. We're here at the Reciprocal Meat Conference. I am Sharon Beals. I am the Executive Director of the Women's Meat Industry Network. And in continuing our series of women on Meatspad, I'm here with Dr. Lyda Garcia, who is part of the welcoming committee and the planning committee for this year's RMC. So, Lyda, you want to introduce yourself and say hi to the audience?
Well, good morning. Yes, this is very exciting. It's been 25 years since we last hosted RMC here in Columbus, and I think that's going to be a tradition that the Buckeyes are going to continue, right? Every 25 years is just enough time to help, looking for change, right? Enough for things to change over time. And so that's, it's exciting. We're so ecstatic that everyone is here. We were selected for RMC and, just a lot of good things to showcase and to be grateful for, no doubt.
Well, one thing I'm very grateful for is The Ohio State University is our first university sponsor for the Women's Meat Industry Network, and of that we're extremely appreciative. I know your colleague Ben has said how much it's done for the students, and we're happy to be here to help.
Yes, absolutely. So,
rolling right into our stories, tell me about your journey. Tell the audience about your journey.
Well, I originate from South Texas. I grew up 40 miles east of the Texas-Mexico border, about 90 miles west of the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm very proud what we usually say at Tejana, right? It's very enriched with a lot of Mexican traditions. Catholic religion was very key in my life. But we also have a lot of American traditions too. So we're in the middle is how I say it. And I think it's a beautiful blend of just a diverse way of living, right? And so I'm from South Texas, born and raised. My father was a Texas cowboy with a third grade level education. My mother has a master's public school teacher. And so growing up, I saw both of them break their backs differently, right? But it was because of them, my foundation, which was not easy, as raised by a Catholic Hispanic mother, can only imagine. But I have to give credit where credit's due, and it's my foundation. South Texas, it's a very strong culture. And they teach you a lot about people. People matter. Titles don't. Titles are secondary, tertiary, but it's the people. And I didn't realize that until I left. When I left South Texas being a part of the majority, and I went to Clarendon College, 12 hours away, to become a part of the minority. That is when I started to appreciate a lot of my foundation. And so I did every sport there possibly was in my small town of Hebronville, Texas. I was an FFA. I wasn't planning on going to college. I wanted to stay home. My parents were my best friends, and I wanted to be with them. And then as the good Lord would have it, I received a full ride to go to Clarendon College to judge livestock. Little did we know we could get a scholarship for livestock, right? And I was pretty decent at it. And let me tell you, it was a war with my mother because my mother didn't feel that a woman belonged in a man's world. And then I thought, well, then I'll just go into the Air Force. I have the utmost respect for the military, the American military. And I said, I'll go into the Air Force. And I went to the Lackland Air Force Base, did everything I possibly could but sign. And came back home, and my mother said, no, absolutely not. I said, well, you're actually cutting off all my options here. And so because she was a public school teacher, my FFA, or my ag teacher, Mr. Juan Flores, said, why don't we invite her to be a chaperone, a female chaperone, on our West Texas run going to state, which was at Tarleton State. And long story short, when we were at Tarleton State competition, and we were in the arena judging classes on that dirt floor, people were in the stands observing from afar, my mother realized that there were more females, and this was in 1998, more females on the floor judging than males. And she did not take that lightly. And on the way home, she was just asking a lot of questions. When did it change and why? That's the part that got me, was the why. And it was my ag teacher who said, you don't understand. Your daughter has an opportunity to continue changing things for the better. And so, to this day, my mother will tell you she let me go to college. Her thing was the scholarship wouldn't be there forever, but the military would. Which is not true, because I tried to enlist when, if you remember in 2015 when ISIS started, remember that? Mm-hmm. I was so angry when that happened that I went to our local military offices and I said, I want to go into the reserves. And of course, with my education, the PhD and so forth, it was very attractive. But what wasn't was my age. I was 34. And they stopped taking between 28 and 33, right? So just so our audience members know, that's not true. The military is not always there. There's an age limit. So maybe in my next life I'll go into the Air Force. But yeah, so I went to Clarendon College. I gave it a chance. Had to enroll in a meat judging class as a part of my curriculum, and went to, at the time it was Excel, out in Plainview, Texas, and I walked in and fell in love. And went back to Clarendon, and I said, I'd like to finish this semester, but I want to switch over to meats. And they honored my scholarship.
That's awesome.
And I've been faithful ever since, And so then from there, I went to Texas Tech University, which, by the way, because of my brother-in-law, who was a Red Raider, he started planting seeds about college and where you're going. And every time he and my sister would drive through Lubbock to get to Albuquerque, because that's where he was from, he would stop at Kasner. He would stop by Texas Tech, and he didn't know a soul. And he would just ask people, do you have anything in ag? I don't know what you offer. And he would bring me brochures. He would bring me a basketball. He would bring me anything. But what he was doing was planting seeds as well with me. So it was a mixture of things happening at that time. But eventually I transferred to Texas Tech from Clarendon College to Texas Tech under Mark Miller. Mm-hmm. Was on the reserve national champion meat judging championship team, and then Ted Montgomery at West Texas A&M, if you remember him, mm-hmm. He called Mark Miller and said, hey, do you have anyone who'd be willing to coach a meat judging team? And Dr. Miller said, actually, I do. So technically I went for a master's to coach. But let me tell you, an eye-opener. I lived in those beef packing plants. Mm-hmm. Little did I know, I was a part of the Beef Carcass Research Center. And once again, very few females mm-hmm. going into these packing plants. And they're barking at you, they're hollering, they're
knife banging on the table.
Knife banging, and because of my culture, I was able to stay very centered, very grounded. It never bothered me. I was never shaken. And you just learn how to work through it. But I had such a great opportunity to learn the ins and outs of these operations beyond the classroom that we can't teach. Mm-hmm. Because we're limited. And then, so I I revived the meat judging program, and then it's time to graduate. And Davey Griffin and Jeff Saville said, hey, would you consider coming to A&M, getting a PhD, doing some research, and coaching a judging team? So I said, and so, Dr. Saville said, just come and visit. Yeah, well, I know now what that means. Just come and visit. So we went to the whole 9 yards, and by the end of it all, he walked me out of Clayburgh and walked me to my vehicle. He grabbed my arm and he said, "Okay, this is where I'm going to need an I do." And I turned and I said, "I do what?" And he said, I'm offering you a position." He said, and I need to hear an I do. And without hesitation, I mean, my mouth just spoke before my mind could catch up. And, my intuition was like, yeah. So I gave it a chance, and did that, coached a meat judging team there as well in 2007, very successful team. And then as life would have it, I'm graduating, I'm panicking on where to go. I had interviewed at Texas A&M Kingsville, interviewed at Tarleton State, and nothing seemed to fit. And then Gordon Davis called and said, "Hey, we're going down to Austin to give our testimonies to the State Board of Education." And at the time, I believe it was a 2+2 or a 4x4, something where they wanted to fight for college credit for our high school students taking advanced sciences in ag. So animal sciences, math, plant science, whatever it was, but for college credit. And so my role was to tell my story as a Hispanic female coming from a small town, and how, just my journey basically. Well, you know that group. There's always something behind the scenes with Gordon Davis, Mark Miller, Mindy Brashears, Kevin Pond. That was just a powerhouse of a team at Texas Tech. And we were at dinner, and Mindy and Dr. Miller, and they just said, "Hey, we want to offer you a postdoc position. We need you. We need you to teach. We need you to go to Mexico and Central America with us to help make their meat supply safer. But we also need you to recruit to increase the Hispanic population." Without hesitation, I said yes. So there I go back to Red Raider country, and I'm there for a year, and I must have done a decent enough job, because then they hired me on as an assistant, or a visiting assistant professor. And then I was there for 4 years. And very proud to say that from 8% of the Hispanic population, by the time I left, we were at 25.
Wow.
And all I did was go home. And remember my mother that I mentioned earlier that was against females guess who my weapon was when I had to visit with families, going to their house to have dinner, to visit with mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, whoever? Mom. I won her over with
awesome.
time, because she was able to see everything that was out there, but then where I fit in the whole script. And that's when she started to have the aha moment. And so then, now at Texas Tech, I think there were 5 or 6 meat scientists. I was the only female. And there wasn't enough room to spread my wings. So I prayed about it. I prayed the rosary for 8 months straight. I kid you not. Well, beggars can't be choosers, because eventually Purdue called and said, "Hey," Brad Kim actually was the one who called and said, "We have a position here with your name on it. We would really love for you to apply. Send it to me." And then Ohio State had the same position. And I was like, well, beggars can't be choosers. I did ask God for this, right? So I applied to both. And because I'm South Texas, I have a little Brahmin influence in me, I'm impatient. And Ohio State moved faster. By the time I was already being offered the job, I had just made the second cut at Purdue. And so I took a chance, and I've been at Ohio State for now 10 years. And I will tell you that my mother is now 86. I surprised her for Easter, flew down to Houston to see her. She's now in an assisted living. My father has passed since. And I actually got an apology. I got an apology and her apology was about her not understanding. And she should have trusted. Of course I forgave her. I forgave her a long time ago, right? Because she was doing what she knew and so forth. But I'll tell you, and why I share this story is because for our audience members, especially the females, or if you're a minority, and, I don't care that we don't, this DEI thing, we need to talk about it. It's real.
100%.
It's there.
100%.
We can't change the rules overnight. We're here. It matters. And so I share that with our audience members, because sometimes you just have to keep your 2 feet in the ground, believe in something, and stick to it. And trust your intuition, trust the process, that it's all going to work out. And I'll tell you, my biggest giant was my mother. Hispanic Catholic woman. I mean, that's enough right there, right? It was tough. It was tough. But that apology meant the world to me, even though I didn't need it. But the fact that she then understood, and then when she sees pictures on Facebook, and all these females, different ages, and then the students who I bring, she's like, I get it, and that's a win in my book. Let me tell you.
100%. That's awesome. I have my own mother to thank for my my career, because I didn't know what I wanted to study, and she's like, well, you like to eat, you like to cook, you like science. How about nutrition? Boom.
Nailed it.
Just, I was one of the few people who stayed in the same degree my entire college career. I had a girlfriend who didn't declare until she was a senior. So,
yeah, and we still have them. They're there.
So going back to, with everything you've done, and I first met you when I was at US Foods. You did a project for my team, and I appreciate that. And it was unusual, even though I've been I've been a member of AMSA since 1983. Wow, a female professor who is in that meat space. I mean, in the actual, out there in the carcass cooler. That was very refreshing, I must say. But if you could, with everything that you just said, what's the one or two things, if you could just go back to that 25-year-old self and say, boy, I wish I knew that then.
I wish I would have been easier on myself. Today I follow one thing, and it's trust the process. When you're young and things don't go your way, we tend to think it's the end of the world. We tend to lead with our emotions. But remember that praying that I told you about, that I mentioned about, something happened during that time that I began to let go of the control that I never had. And when things come up today, I may respond internally, right? The heart rate may go up, but my intuition is continuously telling me, relax, trust the process. Because if you haven't, just listening to my short story, it all just worked out. The doors were just opening. Hey, you want to come here? Hey, you want to? Okay, I had no plan. and sometimes even what we would deem as negative or a terrible time, it's all leading somewhere. And just stay calm. But I've also had 2 feet in the ground, and I've had a firm grip on my beliefs, and I don't shake easily, and I won't. That's basically what I would have said then. Hey, relax, because it's all going to work out. So enjoy the journey.
That's awesome. So for all the 25-year-olds out there listening, take a piece of advice from Dr. Garcia. Last question. So RMC Planning Committee, you said it had been 25 years since the last RMC. So what's been the biggest challenge, and what's your one piece of advice to the group from West Texas A&M as they start their journey? Well,
it's been quite a journey, I'll tell you. I've had a great team, Ben Boyer and Lynn Knipe, and we divided and conquered. And I think I understand why I did what I did. My job was to help find the logo sponsorships, and my biggest challenge was not asking them for support. It was explaining their role, their purpose with this conference, because that was the main thing. Okay, I heard what you said, but where do we come in? And I had quite a few and big stakeholders say, Lyda, I think this conference sounds great. We wish you the best of luck, but we just don't see a fit.
What's in it for me?
And what's in it for me, And so I had to really stop and just think through some things. And Ohio, I had to be creative. If we had to raise, which we did, $75,000, I sat down with Deidre and I said, I need to see a picture here. What do you need for Saturday? The Meat Judging Coaches Clinic or the board meeting, right? What's happening and what do you need? Okay, well, we need food. Okay, so lunchtime. Okay, how many people? Okay, got it. What about Sunday? What about Monday? And as I drew things out, then I could change. Then I changed my approach, with processors, with dairy farmers, with all these associations, and say, we really could use a lunch catered on Saturday at this time for 60 people. Oh, that's easy. I realized that if I asked for $5,000, that was a big turnoff. Mm-hmm. So I had to be creative with my approach. And so then I'd go to a processor. Hey, I need about 125 pounds of beef sirloins, 8-ounce cut. You think you can help me out? Yeah, I can do that. Versus, I need $3,000. Right? But there were some that could handle the money, the dollar values, and say, oh yeah, no problem, no biggie. So knowing who you're working with and what's their flavor. Because at the beginning I was getting shut down. No, and then that's when I said, wait a minute, I have all this wrong. And so that's what I figured out. And don't take it personal when they tell you no. And we're in tough times. I mean, that's also
Absolutely.
Something we have to be. And so rather than aim for the 10,000s, 15 and 20, I had to be strategic and say, well, if I asked 30 processors and they on average gave me 2,000, how much do I really need to get me? And the little donations added up.
Yes, they do.
So it was fun. Don't get me wrong. It was a lot of work. It was fun, but when you're here and you see all the smiles and, the picnic last night when people are bidding $2,000 for T-shirts, that's the rewarding part of how everybody's just having a great time. Very much worth it.
Well, I appreciate that.
But we're doing it 25 years, though.
Let's see, in 25 years, yeah, I'll be an emeriti at that point. I think I qualify today, but, again, really appreciate your time. It's been a fantastic RMC thus far.
Good.
Fully expect it to keep continuing through all the way through till tomorrow. So again, here with Dr. Lyda Garcia from The Ohio State University. Thank you again for your support of women, and thank you again for a wonderful RMC.
Thank you.